The first bill error we're going to talk about today is a misalignment print. Misalignment print errors on bills are easy to spot since the seals and serial numbers will be printed in the wrong places. So if you look at examples like the ones in this video, the serial numbers are overlapping the numeric values or the graphic of the presidential face, so on and so forth. They can be in a lot of different areas. This is generally due to a misfeed in the bill sheet when going through the printing press, which allows the planks that are going to lay down the graphic to put them in the wrong places. These are a little bit more common than other errors we're going to talk about in this video, so they are something that you can come across in your wallet, and are generally between like $150 and $200 depending on the price, the face value of the bill itself, and how drastic the misalignment print is. The next one we're going to talk about is missing prints, which, as you could probably guess, is when parts are missing from the bill. So if you look at this example, when the press prints over a foreign object like a loose piece of paper or a wrapping or piece of tape, or just doesn't lay ink due to insufficient inking or some sort of other malfunction with the press, then parts will be missing entirely from the bill. And these are really fun to collect. They're a little bit more rare, and by a little bit I mean they're hard to come by, but they are still something that does happen and hits circulation and stuff you can find in your wallet. And they generally sell in the few hundreds of dollars range depending on the face value of the bill, and of course how much of a missing part there is. This is not to be mistaken with a ink smear or a lack of ink, which we're going to talk about later on. Another one we're going to talk about, the third one, is probably one of my favorites, and they are rare. However, actually, just recently on our Facebook forum, as well as on VarietyandErrors.com's forum, we had a user submit a picture of a bill they found. I believe it was a $20 bill that had completely mismatched serial numbers. This is very, very, very rare. You know, this is a really fun one because if you come across something like this, it is a true gem. You should definitely hold on to it. But they are very sought after. Mismatched serial numbers are more common than mismatched characters, the lettering on either side of the serial number. So if you do come across one where the actual caricatures on the serial number that are the letters are mismatched, then that is something to hold on to as well. They are generally worth in the mid-hundreds, but can be worth up to the thousands depending on how mismatched the number is. So basically, to kind of sum it up, is the more numbers that are mismatched in the serial number, the higher the value that bill is going to be. The fourth one we're going to talk about today is called a gutter fold error or a blank crease error. These occur when the bill sheet is sent through the printing press and has a wrinkle or fold in it, causing that to be printed on the bill. So the final product basically shows, you know, like if you took a photocopy of a page and a corner was folded over, or you had a piece of tape over it, or something like that, then of course it would typically put kind of a white spot onto the bill. These errors are semi-common, but of course, you know, you don't see it. They do get caught at after the pressing has occurred, and generally in quality control are done away with or replaced by what we talked about in previous videos, which are star notes, to annotate that they had an issue with it, this being a fold-over error, and replaced it with a note, so they put a star on it. They are worth generally in the $100 to $200 range, depending on the face value of the bill, of course, and how drastic the fold is. A printed fold error, this is not to be mistaken with a gutter fold error. This is when an entire portion of the bill is folded over. So if you look at the example in this video, printed fold occurs when an uncut sheet folds over and remains this way during the printing process. As such, these types of errors, they range widely depending on how drastic the fold is. Some are very little and don't get caught, make it into circulation. Some are more drastic. You know, there's lots of them you'll see on PCGS and other types of sites like that, or through different companies like that. And for example, you know, a $1 bill recently sold for about $200 that had about a quarter of the bill folded over and still printed through the printing press. So it's definitely a fun error and something that you could find, although they are a little uncommon. The next one we're going to talk about is what is referred to as a reverse print. Reverse prints are a result of the sheet being fed into the press with the obverse or back of the bill facing the wrong way. This prints the Treasury and Federal Reserve seals on the back of the bill as opposed to next to the presidential face. These can be worth up to the thousands of dollars. They have been found in circulation in people's pockets and in wallets, and not just in estate sales or specialty sales or anything like that. Private collectors and stuff like that really love these. They're very unique and fun to look at, and lots of local shops will have examples of these if you want to see them in person, or you can go to VarietyErrors.com and we have a bunch of pictures of them. Like I said, they can be worth into the thousands. It depends on how drastic the overprint is, and so on and so forth. The next error we're going to refer to is called an inverted overprint, or upside down serial numbers is a common thing that you'll hear people say, although it is actually a misprint of most of the graphics on the bill, actually. An inverted overprint bill error occurs when the sheet is fed upside down to the face print. This prints the Treasury seal, the district seal, and the district number, as well as the serial numbers upside down. These are actually not as rare as you think they would be. This has actually happened a few times as far as in circulation, different series, stuff like that. So you can definitely find one in your wallet, albeit it's not super common like other smaller errors like mismatched serial numbers or little fold over errors, but they're generally worth in the few hundreds of dollars depending on the face value of the bill and of course the condition. Another really fun error is double denomination errors. They are definitely another favorite of mine. They're very, very rare. A double denomination bill error is an error that occurs during printing where the value of the bill is different on each side. So this can happen in a lot of different ways. It's generally a misfeed where a sheet was in the process of being fed for one side of the graphic and then was misfed into one for a different denomination, or the printing planchets were not swapped out correctly and therefore it was misprinted. Generally these are caught, but there has been many cases of these going into circulation, so it is something you can find, but they are just absurdly rare. I've never really seen too many people just yank one out of their wallet, but they are worth in the thousands and thousands of dollars generally. You know, but at the same time, some of them can be worth just as little as $50. It depends on the quality of the bill and how much the misprint is. A miscut or faulty alignment error is probably one of the most common that you'll see, along with over-inking. I'll kind of discuss both of those at the same time, although they are different errors. A miscut error or faulty alignment error is exactly what it sounds like. Basically, when the sheet gets done being printed, it's going to be fed to be cut into individual bills, and essentially it was misaligned or fed incorrectly, causing the cutting mechanism to miscut the bill. This is generally when a bill's outer edges do not meet the normal specifications as any other bill, and the graphic of the bill itself showing the denomination and the presidential picture, as well as the Treasury seal, so on and so forth, is going to be misaligned. So these are more common. You'll see these in local shops and trade shows and coin conventions all the time. Basically, the value of that bill is going to be determined on how misaligned that miscut is. You know, for example, if something was cut completely off or the graphic is even cut off, then of course that would be worth a lot more than just a slightly smaller border. But they are very easily spotted. They're a very fun error, and something I would definitely suggest looking for and adding to your collection. Over-inking errors are also common. It's easy to spot them, especially in the serial numbers, because you'll see just an abundance of ink laid down on various numbers or the characters of the letters around the serial number. Something to definitely look for. They're also very common. You can see those They are mistaken sometimes with a lot of collectors that something is an over ink when in actuality it's not, but you'll definitely be able to point it out. It looks like a very bold version of the number or letter, but also can be seen on the presidential seals and any other part of the bill. It's not to be mistaken with an ink smear, which is something that we will talk about in just a couple minutes. Insufficient inking is another error. It's exactly what it sounds like. This is generally overlooked as far as being in circulation. A lot of them get pulled before going to circulation, but some of them with minor insufficient inking have made it into circulation, of course, and have been found. They are very, very valuable depending on how drastic the insufficiency is in the inking. Some are slight corner wear looking insufficiencies. Some are almost the entire face of the bill. Many examples have been seen to sell between $500 and $1,000, but some very drastic examples have made it into the multi-thousands of dollars at auction. So they're definitely something to keep an eye for, but a lot less common to find just hanging out in your wallet. But definitely a fun error to collect. Blank reverse notes are also very, very rare. They occur when one side has absolutely no image on it at all. This happens when two sheets are being fed through the printing press at the same time instead of one. This is leaving the reverse side of the bill unprinted from either set. These are, of course, extremely rare and be worth high premiums and high values across the board. For example, a $1 bill sold in auction not long ago for around $500. So, of course, the condition of the bill and how drastic the blank is. Of course, if it's completely blank, that's going to be worth more than something that's just what's going to be considered an insufficient inking if there is an image. And that's something we just talked about. The next error is called a multiple impression error. It's very similar to multiple impression coin. So when the printing press is laying down the ink to cover the bill, it essentially gets fed more than once. This is generally due to the bill sheet getting stuck in the printing press and essentially gets the same graphic put onto it multiple times. So sometimes you can see these in a lot of different varieties. Some will have different serial numbers printed over top of other ones. Some will have different denominations. Of course, those would be really, really rare. In most cases, you'll just see multiple impressions of the same thing over it. The feeder will essentially lay the same ink more than once. These are quite rare, although there's many examples of them in shows, and they sell in the few hundreds of dollars range, generally, depending on how drastic the print was and how many times it was printed. The next one we're going to refer to is called an obstructed printing error. It basically is exactly what it sounds like. An obstruction happened while the printing process was happening, and essentially a foreign object, such as a stray piece of paper, a fold over, a piece of tape, a wrapping, something like that, basically made its way onto the printing press and got in the way of the ink being laid down onto the bill face. This basically leaves a portion of the bill to be white or not printed on. These are a little bit common, albeit they're not ones you're going to come across on a daily basis or on a standard hunting basis, but they are very fun to look at. They generally are uncirculated because they're caught previous to going into circulation, and they really range in value depending on how drastic that obstructed printing is. So something to look for. Another error is going to be a misalignment overprint, and this is when this occurs when the serial numbers and seals are out of position vertically or horizontally, and so far from their appropriate position that they cover unintended portions of the note. For example, a district seal might be so far misaligned that it covers like the presidential portrait or a border or something like that. These are just like a misalignment error, of course, but sometimes they'll have multiple printings on them and are kind of a combination of different errors that we've discussed in this video. They're generally worth hundreds of dollars. They're a little bit more rare to find just on a daily basis, but are something that you can find in your wallet. And lastly, there are a couple different errors that are uncommon, but ones that you'll see in circulation a lot more than some of the ones we've discussed. The first one is ink smears. And those are exactly what they sound like. Ink smears are when just too much ink or was either put onto the printing planchet and overlaid onto the bill, or if the printing press just outputs too much ink at a time that is printing a bill. These can be found in circulation. Now, one thing that's to keep in mind is a printed fold is one that I did discuss a little bit earlier, but there's also a combination of the two when the printing sheet is caught in the printing press and it essentially lays down too much ink and is a fold over. Those are extremely rare, and there's only a few examples of those that sold in the thousands to $10,000s of dollars. But ink smears can be found readily. If an ink smear essentially covers ample parts of the bill, such as the district seal or serial numbers, those would be worth far more than a bill that just has a slight over inking or smear on it. Those can be found in circulation and are an absolute wonderful specimen to keep in your collection or to sell. So keep an eye out for those. So we've discussed quite a few different errors. I didn't want to go into extensive detail on each one. There will be different videos that I'll put up that cover each error individually. But that way you have a small video to be able to see what you can hunt for in your wallet